Okay. Well, it looks like it's about time to get started. It's about 10 minutes to 7. Um, First of all, welcome to everybody who joined. Why don't we just go around and say who we are and say hi? And I think I'll just call on you guys individually because it's easier than everybody trying to fight over who should talk at once. So I'm just going to go across the top as I see people. Tancred.
Hi. I guess my name's Tancred. I'm the CEO founder of my own startup called My Palate. We're creating a mobile app to help people with medical dietary restrictions find foods and recipes more aligned with their culture. Outside of that, I'm just currently a hardware hacker. I've been to a lot of hackathons. I've actually won a lot of hackathons too. And so now recently I've been trying to do more mentoring to help other students. And that's been for like, was it rapid prototyping and stuff? So that's the kind of stuff my specialties are in.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we've met before. We've talked in person many times. And the funny, strange thing, it's worth mentioning that this is the first time that we've tried to do this kind of meeting where everybody is remote. I mean, that's one of the great things about these meetings is that you get to walk in a room and spend some time with people and, say hi, how you been doing for the last 30 days since the last time we met.
Yeah.
But the new reality is, I guess, that that's not really going to be possible for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So yeah, here we are. Lianne, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, hi. Here I am in my home studio. It's interesting that you're talking about doing this remote thing. It's something I've been doing for many years. But I really have to say it's been nice to get out, like you're saying, every 30 days to get out and meet up with the community. This community has been really valuable to me since I joined, and first meeting I attended was last summer. Getting involved in this, it's just been so huge in terms of being able to like connect with you guys and also learn new skills, share skills. My background's in design, illustration, and done digitally, but also kind of pairing that with all kinds of different new and innovative tech ways of sharing art. So you guys are gonna hear me talk about that a little bit later, but I just think it's awesome that we actually are able to get together virtually, even though, I thought this wasn't going to happen, but Rod and crew, you guys have made it happen. So thanks for putting in the extra effort to make sure we can see each other.
Yeah, cool. I hope that this will, nobody knows how long it's going to be, obviously, until we can get back to that kind of in-person, face-to-face meeting. But I feel like every time we do this, we're going to learn something, and we're going to take what we learn and make the next one better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay, so now, okay, this might be the wrong place to say this, but I need to ask you, please, to tell me how to pronounce your name.
Rui Jie. I'll get it.
I've been saying Rui every time. I actually like Rui too. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Finally.
It's time to turn.
Yeah, okay.
I had to disconnect my earphones, so it's from the computer. It's fine. It works.
Okay, good.
I'm
Well,
glad to hear you guys.
we've got you now. So, Ruji, tell us about you.
Yeah, I am a UX designer. Been working in the AR/VR space for a couple years now. I actually got involved with Developer Circle. Tancred invited me to be on his team unknowingly at the Oculus Go hackathon last year.
Yeah.
We actually went to high school together, and my other mutual friend invited me to join a team because I didn't know anybody at that time.
Yeah.
And then when I walked in, I'm like, hey, I know you. Having to work out. So I do a lot of, I've been working in kind of like a tech space as a UX designer. I also like making games and kind of experimental things on the side for fun. And today I'll be talking about kind of my experience at MIT Reality Hack, which was one of the lucky hackathons I was able to attend before all this craziness happened. But we made some cool tools there for the XR space. And I'll be sharing my experience for that.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Next, we got James. I mean, I know you, but for everybody else's benefit.
You sure you know me? No, I'm James. I worked for Rod for 4 years at DevC. I recently left just to go on a sabbatical, which was originally going to be 6 months and was intended primarily for personal development. As it happens, my plans have kind of been sidetracked a little bit because of the inability to go anywhere or do anything. But, you know, it is what it is. I might actually be coming back, Rod, on a contract. You'll find out about that soon if it's happening, I guess. So you might
a little bit about it already, actually.
Yeah, you might see me. Well, you won't see me, but you might be aware of me.
Yeah.
But yeah, we worked on dev section. We work on enterprise front ends mostly. So I worked on a few React and Angular apps there, and that's where my specialization is, I guess, just front end web development. So yeah, that's me.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, Lisa, everybody knows you, but.
Oh, no, please. Hey, hi, everybody. My name is Lisa. I am one of the colleagues for the Facebook Developer Circles. I actually, okay, so this is a funny story, is that over a year ago, I am still addicted to social media. I don't deny it, but before it was worst. So at the time, I decided that I will close all social media. So what happens is that I close Facebook, I close Instagram, and then I had to find somebody that I had only on Facebook, and I had to reopen it again. So I forgot to close it, and then I was going through my feed, and then I saw VR Oculus Hackathon for the Facebook Developer Circles, and that's how I found out about this community. So that's how everything started. I participated at the hackathon like Rui Jie and Tank. Sorry about the noises, like I don't have my headphones, so so yeah, like that's how my journey started, and it's been incredible. It's been amazing, and yeah, I'm just happy to be here. This is the first time that we have a online meetup, so there's a lot of learning curve. So, but it's fun. I think it's really cool that we're doing this together and finding out how to do this together. So it's fun. We just have to laugh about this, right? Hey.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's me.
Okay, so we have, I think, I'm gonna try to pronounce your name. Is it just Anne?
It's Anna, actually. Close. It's just short for Anna.
Okay, now I recognize your face. Now that I can see your face, I recognize you. Meeting school, right?
Yeah, I started, what was that? Was that March? Oh my gosh, I didn't think it was a year ago, but maybe it was a year ago.
Okay.
For the Oculus Go hackathon, we did a project called the water cooler, which was a virtual water cooler for remote teams to meet up. Seems awfully prescient now.
Yeah, isn't
it? Rui Jie, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You just coached us on how to say your name and I already forgot.
No, that's
but
right.
I saw on her Instagram that she was presenting that, so I wanted to tune in, especially because I was also at that MIT hackathon, and so I'm super interested to hear her takeaway about it. Especially also at that hackathon, I was learning how to use Spark AR, but like, then immediately haven't touched it since then. So I'm interested to hear anything we share about Spark AR tonight.
Oh yay, and Lianne is like the pro, and oh my goodness, that's so awesome that you're here. It's like perfect. By the way, your background, you're in a fancy place.
I am so on board with the custom Zoom backgrounds.
Yeah,
I love that.
Zooming in from like desert resorts, from palaces. Like right now, this is supposedly a rooftop patio in New York, which in reality is a very dangerous place right now, but virtually I'm living the life.
cool. Yeah, I had a background going. It was like the Northern Lights. but I found that it was really like it used to eat part of my head. Like chunks of my face would disappear and stuff, and I thought it was creepy. So I just went with my regular office background, which was fine. Okay, there's one more person, and I'm having a side chat with her. It's Angela, my wife, and I asked her to say hi, but I don't know if she's going to.
Hi, Angela.
So we just had another person who joined as well, Jason. Jason, I don't know
Jason.
if you're all connected up yet. If you've got your audio working.
I think he's muted right now. Yeah.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Hey, there you are. So for your benefit, you just joined and you might not have heard what went before, but we're just going around the room and sort of saying hello, introducing ourselves, who we are. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Jason. Recently a new product designer. Yeah. So I'm not a developer. But
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And who do you work for, or what keeps you busy during the day?
So right now I'm doing freelance. I had a couple interviews lined up in February, but COVID, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you been out to any of the in-person meetings up until now?
Yeah. So I went to TechTO in January.
Okay.
And another one, but I forget what it was called. And then that's about it.
Okay. All right. So my job here is going to be to kind of monitor to see if anybody else goes to join in. But I think we've hit everybody in terms of the round table introduce yourself thing. So I'd say, Rui Jie, why don't we just get you to take over the screen?
Yeah.
Start presenting. Tell us about your experience at the hackathon.
Yes, I got some slides and everything, so I'll try sharing my screen. Can everybody see that at all?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So feels like it's been a year. We're only 3 months into 2020, but I went to MIT Reality Hack in, I think, mid-January. I've gone to a few hackathons post-university where a lot of hackathons are really, really popular. And this is just kind of a talk about that experience and kind of my cumulative experience going to these hackathons, where I sometimes play a developer role, but usually I'm actually a designer in those teams. And just kind of the lessons I learned going through that. So this is going to be super casual. So if you have questions, just feel free and jump in. I got examples, kind of like inspiration, and some things that made this MIT Reality Hack a bit different from other hackathons I participated in. So yeah, if you want to check out what the actual thing we made, it's called Draft 360. You can look it up at draft360.io, and there is a demo that's live, but I'm going to go through a demo later too if you guys want to try that out. So we'll jump right in. So my name's Rui Jie. We already kind of went through the introduction. That's a little 3D printed version of me at my desk at work. It is pronounced Rui Jie, so you guys now know that. And a bit about my background outside of how I got involved with developer circles. I studied art history and computer science in my undergrad. So it was very much a kind of interdisciplinary, good balance of left brain and right brain. I went to Queen's University, and just kind of where I come from for work, I've worked at service design firms. I've worked teaching augmented reality at the Toronto Public Library. And right now I'm the lead user experience designer at Patio Interactive, where we do AR and VR kind of solutions for businesses. And then for fun, I like to make games. I've worked on kind of some asymmetrical VR games before, just participated in various game jams. And right now I'm working on kind of an AR murder mystery phygital game, which is a mix of physical and digital. So always doing stuff or on the go all the time. But basically, as a user experience designer, if you're not familiar with that title, my main job is to communicate good. And I know that's not grammatically correct. That's part of the joke there. If you're all on mute, I'll just imagine you laughing silently at that joke. But yeah, I basically, on my day-to-day, I talk to a lot of people and try to understand what their needs are and create things, usually communication pieces, to help move the vision forward for a project. These could be visuals, mock-ups, decks, proposals, me talking good in events like these. Specifically working in AR and VR for the past couple of years, it's a space that's also really, really wacky and has a lot of learning because a lot of the emerging best practices throughout the years have been, again, emerging. There wasn't really a playbook at the time when I joined on how to best do things. And in that respects, it's very exciting because you're pioneering what that could look like. But in other respects, you're kind of just flailing in the darkness. And personally for me, I have a lot of pain when I was designing for these kind of more spatially aware experiences. So that brings me back to the MIT Reality Hackathon and just kind of sharing that whole entire experience with you guys. So feel like most of the folks here have been to a hackathon or a game jam, but if you haven't, feel free to, I don't know, like raise your hand. I think that's a button that you can press on Zoom. But if you haven't, I'll just explain what it is real quick. It's basically people coming together, they make some cool things over a very short period of time, and there are prizes or sometimes themes, but mostly it's just a lot of learning. Some people you know, some people you might not know, and you make something at the end of it. So here are the 5 things I specifically learned through a lot of hackathons I've been to, but specifically for the MIT Reality Hack and specifically with the project factory system. And some of the, I guess, differentiating points of how this hackathon was run was that instead of a traditional Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it was actually over the span of 5 days. There was like 300 plus people, 40 something teams. We had people from like a lot of different countries and like I think almost 100 plus more pieces of hardware, like so much great hardware. And part of me when I go to hackathons is always going with super, super low expectations, except for having fun and meeting people and trying to learn a thing or two. At the MIT hackathon, I actually mostly want to go to try out all of the different hardware they have. If you are passionate about the XR space, you know that in the past couple of years, the hardware has always been iterating and evolving. And it's so hard to try out some of these because, you know, these startups will come and then they'll go and it'll be so fast. And YouTube reviews are only so comprehensive in what the actual experience is like. So a lot of the things that you couldn't even see at other big conferences like the HoloLens 2 or the Varjo XR1, or even the Project North Star, which is an open source AR headset, they were actually going to have units built specifically for the teams to try out throughout the 5 days. So day 1 was all about all these workshops on these different types of hardware. And it was really interesting stuff because they would run it 1 hour long and you can meet a lot of people while you're going to all these different sessions to kind of, you know, ideate, network, and like figure out what people want to build. And again, I went in being like, you know, it's going to be MIT. There's going to be so many smart people there. I'll just try to go in with no ideas because I want to be the empty cup that will be filled with knowledge. So I didn't really prepare too much at all with ideas coming through. But then I met somebody at one of the sessions and inspiration hit. Specifically, it was like an afternoon session where, you know, like sometimes like after you have lunch and you're kind of like post food coma and you're kind of a little bit sleepy, you're a little bit out of it. And I was talking with somebody at one of these afternoon sessions and they were describing their VR project. And the whole time I was just kind of disassociating and being like, I don't understand what you're saying, even though we're both like having worked in industry and in one of these kind of very leading cutting edge events at the industry and having this communication struggle. So this was kind of like a trigger point of giving me flashbacks to all the times I had to explain to like clients, to friends, to family of like, what is it that we do exactly in the XR space? And this was just a very relevant problem that I wanted to solve. And when you have a very, I guess, sticky problem, it really presents itself as a great opportunity and can really have great clarity and vision. And because this was a very like big personal pain point of mine, I knew exactly what I wanted to build for this, and that helped me prioritize exactly what kind of features I wanted to build out of those 5 days in order to create a really solid demo. So that's how like the vision of a 360 VR storytelling tool came out. Because the problem in this specific scenario is we couldn't do telepathy yet. But then I was like, what if we could? And then at this hackathon, if there was any time to try to solve this problem, it would be then and there. So the idea that I ended up pitching at this kind of very interesting facilitation activity was they had these giant columns, and you can add how they facilitated the team formations was they wrap these columns up in paper, and you can actually write down what your idea was on a piece of paper, and each column represented a different category of a AR, VR, or XR solution. So it could be like education, gaming, tools, utility, anything like that. And the facilitation, I think, exercise was really interesting because usually, from my experience, you either go in with a team and an idea, or you come up with an idea and you're kind of like shouting into the void, hoping people hear you, and you like assemble your Avengers through that way. But this was a really kind of more thoughtful way of facilitating and sparking that idea, and really helped me articulate it early on by actually forcing me to write it down. And as I went home on that first night, I thought about all the sources of inspiration for tools that I currently use in my workflow, and all the ways that they worked and all the ways they didn't work for my specific needs as a designer. So I'm sure I think a couple of you are designers, might be familiar with like Photoshop, Sketchbox is a VR prototyping tool. Envision is a design prototyping tool, as well as Figma. And then there's another plugin called VR Rooms, which is kind of a 360 VR equivalent. That's a plugin for web tools like Figma. So these were all tools I have been familiar with and have tried to incorporate to my flow, but they never really hit the same way. And then one day I saw this really cool video by this concept artist called Jama Jurabev. So I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but basically he used a free 3D modeling software called Blender. And there was a new kind of tool there called Grease Pencil. And he was actually able to kind of sketch in 3D space and start building out and really iterating really quickly these different scenes by sketching them out in 3D space, which I thought was just amazing. And I was like, wow, I wish I could do that on a storyboard level, but add a 360 spatially aware component. And that was kind of what we focused on with Draft 360, was really building a solid use case for it. And what was really important for that specific evolution of the idea was we really wanted to incorporate the drawing aspect because it was something that was intuitive to most designers or people out there. And we really wanted to have something similar like in Figma, where it is a web-based component. So it's very shareable and accessible. So you don't necessarily need to have the latest hardware, or you have to learn how to code in order to prototype or visualize your idea. So those were the two kind of guiding principles as we were developing the idea throughout the coming days. And this is kind of our sprawling inner mind of like 5 people who were really sleep deprived throughout those 5 days. And what I learned from working with 4 other people who I had never met before I went to MIT Reality Hack was I would have never been able to do this alone. I feel like I come up with a lot of great ideas, especially when it's like 3 a.m. and I can't sleep. But a lot of those ideas never make it to the morning because I don't have all the skills and I don't have all of the knowledge to actually make it happen before 100 years have passed. So it was really important for me, I think, at this hackathon in particular, to talk to people, learn what they do, and let them have the opportunity to really fly. So talking to people, not only my teammates to understand what they want to get out of the experience, but also to the mentors that were there, because MIT Reality Hack had a lot of great mentors. And it was really interesting to talk to them early on because we were all XR creators in that space. And it was a really unique opportunity to see how they were implementing like AR for the New York Times app, and seeing how like XR is being used for journalism and what their design and development process currently was, which is very similar to how I have been doing it with validating, but at the same time, I could also see there was a lot of room for improvement. So really being able to talk with mentors as well as having different team members who pick things up really, really quickly was a great experience to kind of lead, as well as being able to like learn and point others in different directions while wearing many hats. So this is a picture kind of the team. We had I think the most diverse age range of people who were on the team. So I'm on the left picture, that's me kind of blurry in the distance, kind of looking creepy. But Stefan, who is standing up holding the phone, he's like 14 from Russia, and he like came with his dad. And it was really weird because like his dad was just kind of like hovering and was like, I don't know what to do. It was like reverse daycare situation. And then Tejas was also a Boston local who had some VR development experience, but we also made an Nreal prototype as well. And then James was also a Boston local and had one other teammate, Nicholas. He was like a 3rd-year engineering student transitioning into animation. So it was really interesting to see the different skill sets and the different perspectives come together throughout those few days. And again, without meeting these guys and seeing how brilliant they are, we would have never gotten to this point, which is a quick little video demo of it actually being used. So they actually had a Surface Studio there. And basically how it works is, well, I'll play a video in a second, but this was like the first time I went into a project having like, if we can just do these 3 features, that'd be great. And then they went 110%. Like we went 110%. I was like, wow, this exceeds all my expectations and wildest dreams, which is also really, really fun. But like all in all, after doing all that work, it was really important to think ahead and tell a really good story. And for Draft 360, the whole point of having cross-compatibility and accessibility from your desktop browser to your phone to WebVR to accessing it through your Oculus headset was that we had a lot of different demos to show, and an Nreal demo too. We had 4 demos, 5 minutes with the judges, so we had to make each minute count. So a lot of that was actually how we communicated what we made, because you can show them all of the different features, but it's going to be very overwhelming. And if the judges don't see the value, then it's almost disheartening to see them not understand what you think is a really valuable tool. So we're able to make this really awesome concept video, which I'll share with you, to kind of explain the concept. Yeah, so that was kind of the whole concept video, going over all of the different touch points of the demo. And the part that we made for the end reel was kind of cut short because we ran out of time at the end. So I made some illustrations, but basically that part was you can sketch your concepts on paper. And this is kind of us, because they had all this cool hardware there. We wanted to prototype what the next generation of kind of XR prototyping tools could look like with these AR headsets. So the idea with the nReal headset was that you sketch your concepts on paper. So you can draw like, oh, I want a portal to be located here. Then you take a picture of that with your phone, or you have whatever image saved on your phone already. And you're actually able to use your phone, which is connected to your nReal headset. And you can use it as a remote to actually place it spatially where you are. And you can, that way you can start kind of like blocking out what your scene looks like immediately. So the whole idea is how can we get the ideas from your head to paper to the real world as fast as possible. And what was really also cool with that demo was you can annotate what you are actually doing there by leaving a voice note with your phone and then placing it alongside or wherever you want in that 3D space. So what's next? Well, the demo is live. I can go through kind of a run through of that and give you the links for you to try it out yourself as well. I'm doing these talks and kind of having these opportunities to get feedback from people who are interested in the XR space to see if like a bit of user validation and also figuring out what the product roadmap will look like. And then we did win tickets to go to AWE 2020, but we don't know if that's actually going to happen with how everything's going to be. So that's kind of a maybe at this point, a hopeful maybe. But if you want to take a screenshot of this, it has basically all the important links. If you go to draft360.io, there's a link to the dev post as well as the live demo link. I'll just leave it on for a little bit for you guys.
Yeah, and I'll share these in the group as well. I'll just post them as comments under the live video when we do it.
Yeah, so, and then my socials are here. I don't really use Facebook so much for professional purposes other than for this group. But if you want to add me there, I'm learning Twitter, but slowly but surely. But yeah, if you guys are interested in going through a demo now, I can do that too. That's if we have time for that still.
Yeah, so is there going to be sound involved? Because I'm not sure if the sound from your computer actually comes through very well. Is it?
Oh, okay. There's not going to be sound other than me talking over it.
Okay, let's hit it then.
Okay, so it's a dev post. This is the actual like demo that we made. So if you have the nReal headset, you can try the nReal app itself. But basically you go in here, it's built on Glitch with A-Frame and 3JS and Node.js. But basically when you go in, the whole idea is artists and creators have specific workflows that they're used to. And we wanted to create a tool that augmented that without them having to learn how to do 3D or code in any specific way. So in here, we have basically a template background that you can look around. It's just a 360 kind of reference point. And I can actually go into draw mode and start drawing directly onto that 360 photosphere. Like maybe I want to add a building here or something like that. Whatever you want to do. And then let's say I'm tired of actually drawing this out by hand. If you have some pre-done images, I can actually put some people there as well. And you can actually import images from your desktop too. There's like some demo images. And then again, if you wanted to add text, hello, everybody. for annotations or whatever, that's also possible. And then here I have one scene, but I can actually create multiple 360 VR scenes. So I can go in here and I'll create one for the city. So this is another kind of template scene that I did a quick screen grab in Blender. And what I can do is actually go back to the first frame or scene that I was in, and then just make a portal that links to the second one. So this will go to portal 2, and you can see how quickly you can start building out interactive web VR experiences without having to know how to code in any way. So I can also make a portal. Let's make a portal going back to 1. And what else can you do? So what's really great is because this is in web VR, it's very, very shareable. So what I can do now actually is click the share button. And I don't know if this is high resolution enough, but theoretically, if you take your phones out and open up your camera, if they have a built-in QR code reader on there, you can scan this QR code and you should be able to see this scene that I just made and continue adding onto that scene.
Worked for me.
Cool. I'll just copy this link to also show you I'm not lying, but for people who want to try it themselves. So the whole idea is like nobody wants to share a giant link all the time. So a QR code for people to try it on their phones. They can, again, because it's web VR and it's on your phone already, you can pop that into a Google Cardboard and start viewing it in actual VR. So you're in that next level of preview for when you're creating that experience. And yeah, that's basically it. If you guys want to follow up on the progress of this or want to be involved in kind of any feedback, again, my socials are like here. So if you want to follow that, but also if you go to draft360.io, there's like a little email subscription thing that you can keep updated. And that's everything.
Cool. I have a question if I can ask one.
Yeah, go for it.
So you guys built this from scratch in 5 days?
Theoretically, in 3.5 days, because the first day was all learning and the last day was all judging and awards.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, from the time that it took to get that initial submission in place, has this kind of become a major focus for you? I'm just kind of wondering, you know, what's the story after the hackathon ended?
Mm-hmm.
You guys continue to work together remotely to kind of take this to the next level?
Yeah, so the original next goal for this was to go to AWE and have like a more polished version of the demo. There's a lot of decisions that we made at the hackathon of like the framework that we used and the language that we chose that was for the sake of collaboration rather than for scalability. It's interesting because one of our teammates, like a couple of our teammates have full-time jobs. Another one is like a minor in Russia on a completely different timeline. So I'm like, I don't even know how this would work. Am I allowed to hire you as a developer? You're like, he's like 1 year above the recommended age for children to use Oculus. You have to be 13 plus. You just need it for 40. So that was like wild. So right now, because I think none of us planned to win this and this to go anywhere afterwards, we were doing a public expo afterwards, and so many people were like, oh, what are you going to do next for this? And the whole time I was like, I just want to speak. Still kind of like that right now with the whole situation and everything. But I think it's mostly right now getting this out for people to try in its current state. I actually used this tool at work for a project, and there was a lot of learnings from actually using it. And I think refining that and reconsidering some of the architecture are kind of the next steps, and definitely trying to find collaborators or like get feedback from XR creators to kind of see where it can go. Yeah.
That's cool.
Any other? Yep.
Hey, I'm curious. Like, did you think about like how you would do like depth perception, like or like position tracking or something? Because I know it's like right now, you know, I can draw, but you know, I can't choose if I'm drawing something like a meter in front of me, or like you know further away. Did you think about that problem and how you might solve it going forward? Or?
You mean like the issue of Z depth?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So a bit of that was for this first iteration, we didn't do anything with Z depth just because introducing that was kind of complicated in the 5 days. But I think the way that Photoshop has a feature where you can do 360 VR painting, and I think because this is aimed towards a desktop experience for creation, that it would be kind of a similar layout where you have different layers that you can control, rather than being able to kind of drag and drop it in 3D space. Just because once you introduce, from my experience, it's like once you introduce that third dimension, it just adds so much more complexity, not just from the development side, but from the user side. And
Right.
a lot of it is like, how can we take traditional drawing, but just remesh it around a 360 space in the way that's as intuitive as possible. But yeah.
Makes sense.
Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to, I'm looking at the time. It's just after 7:30. So I would encourage everybody who's currently here in the room, as well as anybody who watches this video afterwards, to reach out to Rui Jie to follow up to see what she's done, what she's doing, where this thing goes in the future. And thank you very much for showing that. That was really cool. I'm going to be, I've had some ideas myself on some sort of VR tools, but I've never found anybody who was willing to kind of sell me their soul to help to build it. But
yeah,
it's really cool to see this. It gives me some more ideas and helps to kind of pull that idea out of the back closet back into the front of my mind. So thanks for that.
No worries. Thank you. Cool.
Okay, so Lianne, how would you like to, I mean, do you need a moment to get set up or ready, or are you ready to roll right now?
You know what? I'm ready. We're gonna keep this cash. And Rui Jie, I just want to say thank you. That was awesome. Very like insightful and inspiring too. I think it's amazing what you guys built in that short amount of time. But kind of to go along with her lead, we're just going to keep it casual. If things, you know, aren't totally working, we're just going to, you know, pivot. That's the whole theme of life nowadays, right? So yeah. Okay, so we'll start with a little introduction about me. For those that are in the room, I think you probably heard what I said, but for the benefit of those who are going to be watching after, my name is Lianne Tokey, and I am a digital artist. And what that means basically is currently I'm creating digitally, but it did start traditionally for me. I'd like to say that I'm actually a creative. That's kind of my core, and I choose to channel that creativity in a lot of different ways. And I've done so over the past maybe 2 decades, using a focus on tech. So when I say tech, that's such a wide umbrella, but generally it's things that are innovative. It's tools that are usually coming available without expense, which was, you know, in the early days when you're a student, you don't have a whole lot of money, so you have to be very resourceful in terms of how you're creating. And so obviously, you know, with Notepad and the web, I started web development, and I was able to build websites and so forth and express my creativity in that sense. But over the years, I've always kind of kept eyes on what new tools were becoming available, again, at a low point of entry, and especially in terms of costs. So I, when Facebook and Instagram had announced that their AR camera effects would be available to everyone, eventually, I mean, I applied for the beta and I was part of that, which was amazing. I jumped on it because I saw it as an opportunity to explore a software that was really well developed, and also, putting out to an audience that was definitely much greater than what I could do just kind of on my own or locally. So I decided to really double down on that when I was accepted into the beta program. And so in doing so, I built different effects and joined a great community of developers, AR developers around the world, and learned a ton in the process, but also was able to reach, like I said, a global audience that I didn't really anticipate I would be able to reach. And that's something that's very exciting in terms of, I think, how people are adopting AR, augmented reality, and VR, obviously XR. I think that's exciting. And as we kind of speak to what's currently happening in the world, I think it's going to become very relevant because, I don't know that how long this situation is going to last, but we're really going to start having to depend on experiences within our space that actually are able to take us maybe out of the space in different ways, whether it's completely through VR or whether it's just slightly through augmented reality. These are things that are becoming a bit more important, I think, in terms of development and where we're going, which is exciting because Spark AR is something that I've been developing for, it's been almost 2 years now. And like I said, the reach is really amazing. So currently, we had a few projects, unfortunately, that have been delayed. They're saying delayed. Who knows how long they'll be delayed for? And I think the COVID has really touched pretty much everyone. In my case, there were a couple of really exciting speaking opportunities that I was looking forward to that have been indefinitely delayed. I've been working with clients as well over the last 6 months, building out effects for them. And whether it's because of uncertainty, because they don't know exactly what's going to be happening, or they're just kind of putting their pause on their budgets, those things as well have been delayed. But I don't look at those opportunities, I don't look at those situations as kind of, hey, this is a really poor situation. I say, okay, what can we do in this scenario to take advantage of the fact that we're in AR? And that's actually the way that I chose the effect that we're going to build today. I want to actually maybe kind of take a step back because I know that you guys probably have some experience with Spark AR. I don't know, it's hard to kind of gauge who actually has experience and who doesn't. But for the benefit of those that are going to be joining after, I want to walk through the UI of the software before we launch into the effect. And then we'll go ahead and we'll build a world space effect, which again, as it relates to the current scenario, I kind of said, you know what, let's just think about how I can do something to do something a bit more proactive for our current situation. So let me just think a little bit about how we can do this. I think maybe what I'll do, Rod, is I'm going to share my screen because you guys are just seeing my talking head right now. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we go in? I'm going to share my my actual desktop. So then we're going to see.
And Lianne, earlier I shared the link that you shared with me.
Perfect.
But I'm not sure how many people got a chance to actually do the installation. Like I have Spark AR Studio installed, but I'm not sure if anybody else has. Like, is it worth doing a
well
of the installation requirements?
We can do that. Can you actually see my screen right now?
Yep, I can see your Spark AR Studio.
Okay, yeah, and I've got Zoom in the background. So this is just the pop-up window. So yeah, there is a resource link that was sent to, I guess, kind of summarize the tools that I would recommend. And obviously the first one is you have to have the requisite of having a Facebook account, because that's how you're going to connect your what you're building, and that's how you're actually going to export it out to the world, which is via your Facebook account. And you're either going to output to Facebook or to Instagram. You currently can't output to both at the same time. But those, the wonderful thing about a beta software is that it is always changing. And even this startup page has changed dramatically over the last probably 3 to 4 months, and for the better, of course. Also, if you refer to the link that I'd sent, there are a couple of assets that I've included that, possibly after we finish doing this, then you can go in and pull those down and then follow along depending on how many screens you have to be able to work on the actual project, and then follow along with what we're doing here in the live. So I also just wanted to say again, thanks for doing this, and thanks for those of you that are tuning in now, tuning in after. I think we're looking at a space and time where, we can maybe look for an opportunity to learn something new. We can choose to just hone our craft or our skills, but I think it's really a great time to learn something, and maybe not something that's so really intimidating in terms of learning a whole huge piece of software that you probably won't gain momentum and build something from. But the wonderful thing about Spark is that there's a whole range of entry points. So if you have zero experience, there's something that you can do just to start and then build and create something. And also if you have a wealth of knowledge in development, there are also tools that you can bring into this and really kind of stretch your skill set to see what you can do to push in the AR space. But so what I want to do just first is when you launch Spark AR, you're going to see this pop up. And what it does now is offer you a variety of starting point templates. So obviously there's the blank project that we could start with. This one is extremely exciting. This is version 84. As you can see here, the version is always posted just below Spark AR Studio logo there. This one is eye color. So if you're looking at that, her irises are actually purple. And this is a piece of very much requested functionality that has been talked about a lot in the Spark AR community, which is, again, where you're going to get a lot of resources. This is something that was recently added that has made a lot of people very excited. So again, these are all templates that you can click and restart, and it'll actually launch with it pretty much. As you can see it here, the final effect is ready to go. This is 3D animated poster, and what that is something that we're calling target tracking in the software. And you have an actual target in your real space. In this case, it's going to be a poster that you would actually hover over with your phone and having it launched in Instagram or Facebook, and it will trigger an effect in the space. Of course, your kind of typical face decoration, so you can throw on glasses, or you can throw on, different kinds of art pieces on the face. You can really, again, take these as foundation pieces and then build on it with whatever background you have. Speaking of backgrounds, there's this one that is very similar to what we were seeing earlier when we launched Zoom for the first time, and there were all those really neat different backgrounds. Rod was saying he had the Northern Lights there. You can pretty much put whatever you want, and I think this is a really great starting point for that. Then something that's a bit more trendy, of course, is makeup. This is something that you can go in there and really tweak all of the different assets. I'm not going to go into it again. I highly encourage you to go in and launch all of these templates to see what's going on. There's the world object. I'm going to get back to this one because this is what we're going to be using as a starting point for the project we're going to be building. And then a few more here, neck decorations. So not just bow ties. Again, it's at a starting point to give you that spark of creativity to allow you to think of other things. So whether it's necklaces or the bow tie here or some fancy, vest, that's a great starting point for that. Another element that can be manipulated and altered to really set a tone or a mood is the color filters that are connected to the actual camera lens. So you're really altering the color space of what you're seeing through your camera. And finally here they have the head decoration, which can be, the hat or visors. There's actually one more, and this was the first starting point of all of the filters, which we saw in Snapchat, that made them really quite popular, I think, and had that mass appeal, was the face mask. So that's kind of the original one. So when I was thinking about what effect we should build, Rod, we were talking about it. The go-to, I think, is kind of any one of these, but I wanted to really apply it to what we can do in terms of adjusting how we're functioning on the day-to-day. So I thought about these businesses that are in the retail space right now, and small businesses, larger businesses, and I feel for them because people aren't even able to come into their stores anymore, and they have these great products. And I thought to myself, how can we build something that would, if we would to take them on as a client, come from a client space, how could we help them to bring their product to the to the people rather than having people come into the space. So what we're going to build is based on a fictional, we'll call it a fictional retailer who has a bunch of product in store. In this case, let's say, like I was looking around my studio here and I have a couch and I have some pillows. And I thought, you know what, why don't we make it a fictional space that will allow me to go in and shop for pillows. So don't judge, like I love throw pillows and stuff. And that's what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually create an AR effect where I'm gonna be able to take my fictional client and I'm gonna say, okay, you're gonna be selling pillows to your clients. No problem, we're gonna allow them to see and visualize that pillow in the space, and we're gonna actually allow them to choose colors of those. So let me actually bring up a sample. This is the finished product that you guys are gonna be able to build like incredibly quickly, which is amazing to me. So this is it, that's the pillow in the space. Let's let it play. And what it does is identify surface. We're gonna be able to twist and modify the pillow. There's a bit of a drop shadow there too. And then we're gonna build this UI picker to allow the fictional clients to see what the pillow actually looks like in the space. So super functional. And Rod, did you have a question?
Yeah, so are we looking at, what are we looking at right now? Is that the view from your phone?
This is what I captured on my phone, correct. So this would be very similar to what the final effect is going, how it's going to function and how it's going to look. So you can actually visualize whatever product. Now you can say the pillow could be pretty much anything. It could be a pillow, it could be a chair, it could be, blinds, it can be, a throw for your bed. So I'm thinking again, more from the perspective of the businesses that don't have the capacity to have people to come in. Let's see how we can build something for them so then they can allow their customers to visualize their products in their own space. Just, I'm sitting around in my space, I'm thinking, how can we bring the store to me? So, and I thought that this was a great way to show a few elements, which is including script. We're going to go through that, including some JavaScript, how easy it is to tweak that, and then also to show you how we can add variations of the same object without having to get really complicated in terms of textures. I'm not certain if it looks complicated to you or if that's something you feel that you would be able to do, but when I thought to myself, half a year ago, would I be able to build something that I could, visualize things in my space like this and change the colors? I didn't think it was possible, but you'll see how quickly we can build something like this based on the template. So I'm going to go back.
I think it's really cool that idea, because I am someone that likes to change things around. So even if I'm not buying anything, just for me to visualize how would it be, I'm a dreamer. So I love to be like, oh, let me just put a pillow here. How would it look like? Oh, that looks so fancy. Like I love that you actually have this, and people are going to be able, I am going to be able to, like if I just want to change my routine, I'll be like, I'm just gonna use Lianne's filter and just gonna like throw a pillow here. Let me see how it looks. Like It's so refreshing for me to do that. So I think it's fun and obviously useful.
That's great to hear. And you know what, like I said, once you see this, it's going to be a point of inspiration. You're going to see how quickly we can bring 3D assets in. And then you can yourself say, okay, maybe I don't want to do pillows, but let's see what other 3D assets are in here. And you just swap them out quite easily. So we're going to get into it. I think actually I want to, before I complicate the user interface, maybe just for the benefit of those that don't know anything about the UI, we'll do a quick walkthrough of a blank project, because it's much less intimidating than opening one of the templates, which I find sometimes people get a little bit overwhelmed and say, I don't know what all of these moving parts are. I don't know what these patches are. And then they'll step away. What we want to do is encourage people to, again, start in a piece of software that perhaps they wouldn't have otherwise, and realize that it's not super intimidating. If we just do a little bit at a time, we'll be able to actually build something functional and quite quickly. So if you have a look here on my left screen, I'm actually just going to use my mouse, I suppose, to point to whatever it is that I'm looking at. And here on the left, you'll see I'm mousing over what's called the scene tab, and this is how it opens up you've got your camera, you have the device obviously that we're using, and then the camera, and then the distance from the camera, it's talking about that distance, as well as its defaults to 2 lights that are brought into the scene and a microphone. These are all defaults you can add and remove as necessary. So below that here, you see the add object. Here, if I'm to click on this, you're gonna see a whole bunch of different objects that we can bring into the scene, from the face tracker, which is used for the face filters that we were talking about. Plane tracker, this is something that we're gonna be using for the world space. The target tracker, that was that poster one we're talking about. You can go through on your own time and look, as I scroll down, you can see there really are quite a number of objects we can add to the space. Most of them really referring to 3D type of assets. So you can have a couple of 2D assets in there, but generally it's going to be 3D, because even looking here in this viewport, you can see for anyone who's worked in 3D space that this is a very typical kind of generic looking viewport for 3D buildings. So below here, we'll see the assets. Anything that we're going to be bringing into Spark AR will show up in this asset panel. You can bring it in from your computer. You can bring it in from the library. I'm going to show you all of those things. We're going to be using those when we're building. And if you wanted to directly bring in anything else, such as materials, textures, etc., that's where you would be adding those assets. And then again, just this main window here allows you to visualize what's happening more from a different view or perspective. You can actually alter your views here. We're going to look at, say, if we want to see it, how it looks from the left and the right and so on. You can just change it depending on what portion of the effect you're working on. You can see as well that I paused our model, and I'm going to show you how you can actually change out some of those models. If you go over here to this video, you're going to see that there are different simulators. Once I've selected one, I hit play and it's going to change the person who we're previewing, which is great because you get to visualize your effect and how it would look if you're using the front-facing camera. See how it would look on a bunch of different people. If you want to see yourself, if you want to see me, there you go. So we're going to just go back to, I guess, let me just move on my screen. I can't see my, can you guys see the previews of the folks that are here in the room? Probably not. You can see my panel here on the right.
Yeah, so I can see the properties and transformations.
Right, perfect.
Yeah, and just a note on that, Lianne, don't mean to interrupt you, but if somebody else is watching and you find that the video preview is covering part of the screen, you can actually click on the buttons along the top to minimize it.
Yeah, so that I've done.
Drag it, move it out of the way.
Yeah, I did that because it was covering up my right side panel here and I couldn't see it. I thought, oh, well, you guys can't see that. So I just moved it. So let's just talk about what's happening here though on this panel. Anything that I'm going to affect here on the scene side, for example, is going to affect what's happening here in terms of all the attributes associated to that particular object. So, I mean, because we've just got some basic stuff here, we're just going to click on the light. You can change all the properties here of the light depending on what you're selecting in the scene tab. So I don't want to get too far into this interface. I wanted you guys just to kind of see it, become familiar with it, because when we open the template project, it's a little bit more complicated in terms of what you're seeing visually. So I just wanted people to see what this looks like without any effect that's already started. So we're going to pause me there, and I'm going to actually open a new template. So we're going to go to new from template, and we're going to choose the world object. And in just a moment, there we go. I'll close that other one. So there we go. So now you can see that there is, I'm going to minimize my window here. There we go. What we're going to look at here is what's happening in this space. And when you open a template, the great thing is the team has built it so that you direct your attention to the items that need to be modified. And in this case, you can see here, this blue pop-out is asking you to select the asset that you're going to bring in, which we're going to do, which is going to be a pillow, because remember, we're going to be placing a pillow in the space. And then what you're going to do is very simply follow the instructions, which is delete me, and we're going to delete the placeholder. This is the patch editor. I didn't cover this in the other walkthrough, and it's, as you can see, when you open this template, there is actually preloaded with a whole bunch of really interesting looking, what we call patches in this grid. And when you take a moment to review it, you're going to see how things are connected. We're not going to go through this patch editor right now. What I want to talk about is just how we can swap out assets to customize it for yourself. We don't really need to look at the patch editor, but I highly recommend that when you open one of these templates, connect and disconnect all of these little nodes, and you can see how it affects the filter that you're building, and then hit play and pause. And that's a really great way of learning. For now, what we're going to do is just follow the instructions, which is we're going to go and get ourselves a pillow. So where do we get that? I mean, I haven't built a pillow. The wonderful thing, once again, about Spark AR is that they have made it very easy to bring in assets. They even have a whole bunch of assets connected to Spark AR in our assets. So let me just see here how we're going to add this. If we add an asset, we're going to bring it in, rather than from our computer, we're going to bring it in from the Spark AR library. And it is going to show up any second now. What just happened there? Oh, maybe it's open elsewhere. My bad. Let's see. Huh. See, this is that situation where we're like, well, where is that? Sorry, guys, just give me a sec. I don't know why it's not open. It should be open somewhere then. Okay, we're going to try again. So we're going to import from the library. Where's the library? That's odd. Uh-oh. Well, we need to bring it in. Let's see if there's another way. I might have to, again, with beta software, sometimes you have to restart the whole thing. If things aren't working as you wish and you're kind of sitting there going, well, why isn't this working? Well, sometimes you have to restart, unfortunately. I'm wondering if I can bring it in. I wanted to show you how to bring it in right from Sketchfab, because the wonderful thing about Spark is that it is connected directly to Sketchfab, which is a wonderful repository of 3D assets that you can either purchase or that are available for free. So I'm going to see maybe if I can, okay, here's another way. There's usually a few different doorways. We're going to see if this works to bring it in. Oh, and nothing. Why is that? Odd. Okay, give me a second here, guys. Let's see if we've got. I'll show all windows. Aha, it's hiding back here. Okay, wonderful. I don't have to restart. Okay, so that would have popped up this library. Sorry about that. And what we're going to do is search the 3D objects. Remember, we're looking for a pillow. So I'm literally just going to go in here, search for a pillow in my 3D objects. And you can see here a number of samples, right? Is it all coming through pretty good, guys, or is it stuttering? Yeah, okay. Now I've picked this one and I'm choosing one that looks simple. So there are a few things that we're going to be looking for when we're bringing in 3D assets. And the great thing as well about Sketchfab is that it does give your specifications right up front here. You don't have to go digging for them. We're going to be looking at the geometry, the vertices, etc. We want to do something that is definitely well under 50,000, which this is. And just a couple other notes about bringing in 3D assets. It's better to have maybe one or two larger 3D objects with more geometry versus a whole bunch of little ones with a little bit less geometry. So that's just a little side note. In this case, we just need the one pillow, so we're going to import it free. Now, if you weren't already signed into Sketchfab, you would be prompted to log in here, but because I'm already logged in, there it says it's done, perfect. And you can see here now, it's been added to our assets. You see that there? There's the pillow, right? Okay, so we want to address the existing placeholder, which is the anchor. We actually don't need that, right? So I'm actually gonna hit pause as well because you're seeing it spinning. I find that a little distracting. So we're gonna take the pillow and we're gonna do exactly what it's telling us to do. We're gonna drag it here. And now it's in the space. It's really super big. I can tell right now that we're sitting inside the pillow actually. I'm gonna bring it up over top of the drop shadow. That's where I would like to retain that drop shadow. And I'm gonna show you how we are going to scale this. So we're gonna actually click on the pillow and we're gonna use these tools. Remember I was talking about the different tools about how we can modify our objects. And we are going to scale this one down really big. There we go. And we're actually just going to click on the anchor and we're going to delete it. We don't need it. The thing about working remotely is I have no idea if this is all making sense. So Rod, give me some feedback if you're able to see things.
That's good. I mean, for me, the experience is good. I'm able to watch what you're doing. Okay, cool. Anybody else, feel free to speak up. Yeah.
It's good.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's like a little vacuum here. Okay, so what you're seeing I'm doing here, I'm going to talk through it, is there are 3 different manipulators. This one is once you mouse over, you're going to be able to see what it does. You're going to adjust the movement of the object. This is obviously to rotate and this is to scale. So we're going to be using those right now because what I'm finding with this pillow is I don't want it flat down. I actually want to rotate it so it's sitting up. And we're going to go to the rotate tool, go figure. Pretty straightforward, right? We're going to pull it on the X and Y axis and we're going to rotate it. And then I'm looking here in my viewport. I can see it's kind of sitting below the floor plane. And what I want to do is bring it up. So I'm going to hit the move tool there. I'm going to bring it up slightly. Now, if I want to see this again from a different perspective, maybe from the front, make sure that it's actually sitting up. Yeah, that looks fine. Even from the top, I want to make sure that it's aligned on the Z depth. So let's have a look from the top. Let's actually find it. Where are you? There it is. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to go back to the bird's eye. I'm going to zoom in a bit. I'm actually also looking at this white plane. If you remember, that was what was the trigger to show you where to place the pillow. You see that white ring there? And I want it to be a little bit larger than the size of the pillow, just to be sure that people know it's not part of the pillow. It's actually a centering tool. So let's go back there and let's scale that a little bit. Again, the wonderful thing about this is it's really intuitive. I find I want to manipulate. I want to change that ring. So I actually just touch it. I'm going to tap on it and it selects it automatically. And we're going to scale that. I'm going to give you a little pointer as well about scaling. This is again very typical of a 3D piece of software. You've got your X and Y and your Z depth. When you mouse over the box itself, everything turns white, and that means that the whole object is going to scale or whatever it is, however you're going to manipulate it. That's a little bit large. I'm quite pleased with how that looks. Okay, so here's our pillow. It's pretty much right there. What I want to do is also take a look at the drop shadow that was included in that template. It's a circle right now, but you know that we're going to be able to manipulate that pretty easily if I either select it in my scene or if I'm going to select it in the viewport. Either way, we can manipulate the size of it. I want it to be a little bit longer, so make sure that I'm on the scale tool. Pull it a little bit wider, maybe a little bit further back. I'm quite pleased with that. I'm not too worried about the shape of it because it's in world space, it's going to blend in quite well with the area that I'm placing it on. So we don't have to be, some people are very fanatical and I think kudos to you, but for the purpose of this, demo, we're just gonna keep it as is. You can also definitely change the shapes, etc. That's done in the patch editor, which is a whole other thing. So before we go to test it on my phone, there was another element, remember, if you recall, and I press stop, that the pillow is spinning. So again, by default, this template brings in whatever object you have and it's going to be spinning. And I don't necessarily want to preview a spinning pillow in my space. So we're going to press pause again. And I'm going to try to figure out, using my investigative skills, how we're going to stop that animation. And it just takes a bit of reverse engineering. If we look at this whole object, what is spinning? Well, the whole thing is spinning if you look at it. I'm not giving you a good view here. Let me just zoom in on it a bit. The whole thing is spinning. So I'm going to look here in my scene inspector and try and figure out at what point the object, the container object, is affected. And we go to the very top, which is just beneath the plane tracker. You can see here that this whole item is affected by the animation. Now that I've clicked it and we've talked about what happens when you select something in the scene inspector, that there are the properties. And you can see here pretty quickly that there are a lot of attributes that would relate to, go figure, the spinning. So if I wanted to turn off the spinning, it's literally a check mark. The spinning is going to be off. If I wanted to keep it on, I can play with all of these properties, but for our purposes, I don't need the spinning. So I've turned it off. And now I feel pretty good about pushing this to view it on my phone. So question of how do we do that? You can do it a couple ways. So you can send the effect to the Spark AR Hub. I mentioned that in the list of assets that we have, and that'll allow you to view it right in Instagram. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually plug the phone in and use it old school USB. So just give me a second while I plug that in. Pop up my iTunes probably. Like that. Okay. So now that I've plugged in my phone, I also have downloaded on the phone, which is included in the resources that I had mentioned earlier, the Spark AR player, which you install on your phone. And once I've installed that, actually it's opened up on my phone, perfect. I'm going to, let's actually mirror my phone too, so then you can see what I'm seeing through my phone. I believe this is my phone. Yep, perfect. So I'm looking at the frame rate there. If I look on my phone and I tap that 30 frames per second, that's showing me the frame rate of the effect. And you want it to be at about a 30 frames per second frame rate. That's ideal. It's going to function well on a variety of different devices. So we're going to push that to my phone, send it to my phone. Let's see what's happening on the phone. There it is. Now we're gonna, oh, there it is. Can you guys see my floor?
Yep.
Great. You can see
Yes.
my couch. So here we're doing this in real time.
That's too cool.
Yeah, and we're gonna turn it. So if you could see my hand, oh, it's backwards, I think. Yeah. Let's see. Let's try. Now the interesting thing about the player is the more it reads the environment, I think this is very typical of most AR players, the more it reads the environment, the better it's going to gauge how to place the object. I'm going to actually restart this because I'm finding it isn't capturing the surface well. And I think that's because when I started the effect, oh, there we go. Yeah, it wasn't actually on the surface I wanted it to be on. So now all I've done is retapped the area. Can you still see it there? And we're smelling the pillow. This is built into the template. I mean, I don't know, that didn't take long at all. And here we're prototyping a pillow in my space. Like, wow. So there you go. And if I were to move over it, you can see above, it's a full 3D and it's, you know, it's sticking to the space quite well. So let's go in and refine this somewhat. I'll stop sharing my phone. And you know, if I were a client, I would say, okay, well, that's wonderful, but my pillow, I don't just sell white pillows. I sell, you know, pink, teal, gray, whatever colors I had. What else did I have? Purple. So what we want to do is build the little thumbnails at the bottom, as we did and we saw in the preview, so that people can actually choose the preview color in real time of the pillow in the space. So how do we do that? Well, we need a couple of assets. We need a script to run the picker, and then we need the actual images, the assets to add into the picker. So let me just make this a bit more visually interesting. Can you still see my face too while I'm talking, or no? Why don't I actually make
Yeah, I can see you.
Can you? But I'm small, right? So let's actually, here we go. Now you can see me while I'm building. What we want to do, let's pause. So what we want to do is bring in the script that's going to activate what's called the native UI picker. It's not a patch-based thing, and I think it's fine. I think it's great to be able to show you guys what we can do with script, because you'll see the potential for other opportunities to bring script into Spark. And to do so, we want to set it up first where we bring in the assets. So let's bring in the assets that we need for that picker along the bottom. We need 4 images, and I included those as well in the link when we first started. We're going to go and add those assets from the computer. And I think all we need to do is just go to my project. Here we go. Grab them. I'm going to bring them in. Is it lagging for you guys right now? My screen or no?
No, it seems fine.
Okay. For whatever reason, it didn't bring all of them in. So I'm going to just bring in the ones we need. Just add them to the textures. Perfect. Okay, so that's wonderful. So we have the 4 elements that we're going to need along the bottom of the native UI picker. Now we just need to bring in the script. That's pretty simple as well. We're going to add an asset. We're going to bring in from the computer the script that I had added in that asset there. I'm thinking to myself, it would be smart to save this project right now. I'm going to bring in this script, but it's just really good practice when you're starting to build something. I haven't saved it yet, you know, and again, beta software, we want to save it. So we're just going to save it just in case anything were to happen. We're going to call this pillow and just save it in the sample project. Okay, great. So you're going to see here in the console that there's actually a couple of errors coming up, and that's because we need to go into the script and we need to manipulate it to make sure that what the script is calling is actually affecting what's happening here on the in the space. So let me just open that up for you. You just have to double click, and depending on what you're using to read your code, I use the just code, which is great. It's free. It highlights everything. We can take a look at this JavaScript, which was written originally by Luke Hurd, and he was so great and gracious and shared it in the community, which is really typical of the Spark AR community on Facebook I'm referring to, where people have built things and they share them freely and then, you know, go back and forth about how it's useful. So in this case, I've repurposed it for 4 picker items, which you see here. The other thing that we want to identify is the constant that we're setting. In this case here, it's just a generic name. It's an item. So we're going to want to make sure that because we're calling an item here, we want to make sure that it's active in Spark AR. So let's go back over here. Now, there's nothing called item here. So we have to actually name the pillow item. I mean, I could go into the code and change that, but we're going to actually just go in and keep digging down on your 3D item until you're at the very last item. You're absolutely certain that that's the one that's being affected. We're going to name this item because that's what the code is calling for. And the other thing that the code is calling for, we've got the 4 items, is this material here. You see here, we have 4 materials. Now that material is the different colors that we'll see on the pillow. So let's go and make those different colors. Let's go, there we go. I'm just gonna go back to the patch editor there for now, bring it down. Great, so under our materials, right now you can see we've got the drop shadow material, the anchor, that was the original one. We actually can delete that. We don't even need that anymore, that blue spinning item that we had to begin with. Right now we're looking at the material for the pillow, which was the default material. And if you recall in the code, we need 4 different materials that are named material 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to change that pillow name. Wow, I think I'm going to have to restart again. Mamma mia. Let's Freezing. See, it's important that we rename this because it's going to be calling for this material.
And would it be possible to, instead of renaming the asset here, to update the code instead to refer to pillow?
Well, you're going to see it's going to be like a color 1, 2, 3, and 4 that will associate to the colors that I've done in the picker.
Yeah.
I'm just going to add a new material. That's all, instead of trying to rename that. Essentially, that's what that is. That pillow material is, the thing is that it's associated to the 3D object. So I wanted it to, tweak it here. Okay, well, what we're going to do is just change that material, and maybe see, by doing that, you see what happened there? If you go off and touch something else, then it releases something on the other side. Now I can go in and I can edit it. Again, beta software, it's the way it goes. We're going to go back in and name this material 1. I'm just going to delete that because we don't need it. So let's talk about this material, right? So if you go back, we're going to recall these are actually here, these 4 textures. We want material 1 to match number 1, go figure. We want material number 2 to match number 2, 3, 4, so on. Now, if this were the real world scenario, I would be talking to the client. I would say, hey, what is the color of that material? Maybe you can give me the RGB colors for it. So I've selected it on the left side. I'm going to go over to the color here. I'm going to punch in what would be the equivalent RGB color of the pillow that they have in stock. So I've written them down to start, and that's going to be 0, 150, 150. So now that will actually be the teal color that you see for number 1. So we're going to duplicate this. You can do the copy, Control C, V. We're going to just do that a few times. Okay, Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V. The nice thing is it will actually name them sequentially. So that saves a tiny bit of time. And we're going to select material 2. You have to actually hit OK first. And we're going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to go back up to the color. And I'm going to punch in the RGB values of what would be the equivalent color of the real world pillow. In this case, it's going to be 75, 0, and 175 for the purple. Yeah. And again, that coordinates with the 1, 2, and 3 numbers that are going to be on the picker. I'm just going to change this one real quick. That's pink. 200. 75 and 200. Oops, something like that. Okay. Thanks for your patience as we go through the process of changing colors.
Could you also use the color picker?
Yeah.
To just grab it from like the little swatch that you have in the assets panel?
That's a good question. I don't think it's, oh, it does. Look at that. Good call, Rod.
Okay.
Dig it. Yeah, that would definitely save time too. There you go. So the other thing that I've always noticed too is that sometimes I'll go around and try and click something else. You actually have to hit OK or cancel on this color palette or else nothing else works. So let's go and do that. Okay, great. So awesome. Now we should not be throwing any errors because we've identified an item. I'm actually not even playing here this whole time. We've identified an item on the stage in the scene. Oh, I keep freezing. There, will let me freeze on a happy spot. And then we've got the 4 textures that we're looking for. We've got the 4 materials. I'm just going to refer back to that code again so you can see what we're talking about. Here it is. Right? So let's run it. This should actually, this is a very good point as well. This should be showing up. If you're going to be pulling any textures in to the picker, this is something that stumps a ton of people. The textures actually have to, once we select them, have no compression on. Once no compression is selected, I'm going to restart this thing. And we should have the color picker there. We should, but it is not. Okay,
Sorry, where did you tick no compression on?
So just once I've selected the textures, over here to the right on the, where you see the properties, you just hit no compression, right? And once we hit refresh, it should, or restart, it should be playing. So let's go back. So once you have an error like that, let's look at the console and see what it's throwing. We're gonna clear this, restart it, and see what's happening. So we are undefined. What are we looking for? 56. So we're going to go down to line 56 and see what is, oh, picker. I think that this name is actually, well, that should be correct. Did we define that?
Yeah, it looks like it's defined on.
Yeah, line 51. Yeah.
No, you know what it is? Okay, another important part of the step that we didn't do. Where did we not define it? We didn't define it here in the project. So we have to go into the project, edit properties, in the capabilities. We did do that, right? We have to activate it here in the capabilities. I'm going to do that slowly. That was really fast. Okay, so we're going to go to project, edit properties. You have to activate it in Spark AR in the capabilities, native UI control. And as you can see here, there are other options for the UI control. We're just doing the picker. Now that it's enabled, ta-da, there it is, it exists. If we clear, we restart, you'll see we have no errors, winning. Okay, awesome. So now we're ready to test it in real time. I'm gonna push it to my device. I'm gonna actually show you guys how it looks if we're gonna push it to Instagram or Facebook. I could send it to my Instagram camera. That's basically what it does. But we're gonna go back over to my player. Here we go. Ready? You see it? Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Right, and now we're going to be able to select the different colors, hopefully. Come on, Mama. Oh, that's interesting. So we go back to the drawing board and we say, why isn't that working? So I'm going to look at where these items are calling. Why is that not working? That should be working. Give me a second here, guys. And it's not throwing an error. So we've got material 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've named them material 1, 2, 3, and 4, right?
Yep.
But look at here, even in my preview window, it's not working. Interesting. Why is that? It worked when I tried it before. Let's see.
I noticed that you were editing the code in VS Code.
Maybe I didn't see.
Like, is that kind of reading? Although you haven't made any changes to that code.
No, I don't think I did.
Right? Okay.
So let's make sure that this is again about saving the right file. So you see how I saved it? Maybe this was the original file that it's saved to and it's not updating. Let's make sure that I'm working with the right script. Okay, so let's go back here. I'm going to select the script. I'm actually going to go and I'm going to reveal it in the Finder and I'm going to look at that specific script to make sure that that's the one that we're using, because maybe it's pulling something different here. So we've got our items, we've got our constants. Yep, these are the items, 1, 2, 3. Materials are good. We've defined the picker. It's true, item, material. I don't have to tell you guys, it was working. So again, this may just be a situation where we say, hey, we're gonna have to restart it. I'm just gonna try again here, see if it's so odd. Okay, well.
The idea is that when you tap those circles at the bottom in the UI picker, then the corresponding texture applied to the object.
Correct. No, it's just interesting. It should all be working. We've got item. Yeah, it's not throwing any things. What I may do is I'm just going to maybe save and restart. That's how it goes sometimes.
When in doubt.
Talk amongst yourselves. But besides that, while I'm restarting, do you have any questions to this point? Like, is that really difficult to follow along, or was it fairly useful? Like, what do you think?
So I have just an observation.
Sure.
I was trying to get ready for this over the last couple of days.
Uh-huh.
I had an old version of Spark AR Studio installed. It was like version 60 something, I think.
Right.
And I downloaded on 3 or 4 separate occasions. I downloaded and updated, and it would always fail at the installation step.
Oh.
The archive is corrupted or something. I don't know if anybody else experienced that. I guess my next step would be to just delete the app and just download the reinstaller again, instead of trying to update an existing installation.
Child not found.
Because the version that I have doesn't have the options that you're showing, because
Oh, is that right?
it's months and months old. And like you said, with beta software,
Yeah.
it advances pretty quickly.
I'm just making sure that I've got everything named properly. This is nice. You know, it worked obviously beautifully just before I was able to capture the example of it.
Oh, look at that. More than one child with the same name found item.
Yeah. So that was because I edited this here. So I should clear that. Okay, so worst case scenario, this doesn't get working. Maybe what I'll do is, oh, see.
There you go.
I wish I knew, but this is, again, what can I say? It's just the way it goes sometimes with beta software. We're going to just test it again. We're going to send it to my phone. We're going to play that baby up. Let's go. Let's see. There it is. Can you see it?
Yep.
All right. It's changed to purple. Yeah. Pink.
But hey.
Cool.
Yeah, there you go. So
Woo, whoop.
woohoo!
So these, I mean, you've used as an example a pillow, but and you've kind of used the same asset or reused the same asset or the same texture, and then applied different materials on top of it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
If I could, because my idea would be, say, to put in a whole bunch of different guitars. So, you know, you have like an acoustic and electric, different versions, different brands or whatever. Could you also add those as options in the picker and then, you know, place them in the scene as well?
Yeah. So the thing right now with the world objects is that we're just able to do one object.
Okay.
So if you were to have one object, multiple items, we could definitely change those items, but you can only really have one instance of the object at a time. So that's how it works for now. Yeah. But again, they're constantly evolving this. It's pretty amazing to me. You know, should I stop sharing at this point? I can, or did you guys have more questions about the UI?
When you were testing, and showing on your phone, the manipulation ring appears in the scene. Is there a way to allow, you know, the end user to be able to rotate and manipulate that object using that ring?
Yeah, definitely. And what you would do is, this is where the patch editor becomes a playground of sorts, because what you can do is really go in there and see what's happening in terms of what's being manipulated. You can see here that we're manipulating the 3D position, the 3D rotation, and the 3D scale, right? So it's a matter then of, once we go in here, I'm not going to really dissect it too much, but this is where when you look at the patch editor of an existing template, you can say, okay, what are the things we're trying to manipulate, and look for those things in the patches, and then start changing and tweaking the numbers or the way that they're connected to go back and forth. Because right now we can I mean, I don't know if you were looking to swap it. I'll bring it back up, swap it on the Z, like to change. Let me just bring it back up so you can see what I'm talking about. So you were talking about rotating it which way, Rod?
Yeah,
You were,
if I could say lay the pillow down on its back, so to speak.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, like I'm able to turn it on the, what would that be? The Y position, the Y 3D. You see how that's going like that? We would just have to change it so that we would, I see what you're saying, to go over and back over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just see there. It's a little funny how it actually sticks, but they're making good improvements on the actual plane tracker. It's definitely improved a lot. But what we would do is, yeah, definitely go into the patch editor. And whoops, can you still see it?
And I mean, it seems to me that this is a pretty, it's a powerful tool in that it's sort of a combination of a designer's tool and a coder's tool. It gives you kind of, you know, both capabilities in one.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Or,
and so many different levels. Like, again, I don't want to mess too much with the patch editor, but you can see how you can combine the JavaScript with the patches with, like you're saying, just the color manipulation. Like this is just basic manipulation of the shaders of the material. Like we could actually bring in textures, patterns and things like that to make it a bit more specific to, you know, whatever kind of image people actually would have for their pillows. Like these are just colors, right? So again, you kind of take these foundation building blocks and you add on to them depending on what your circumstances. And I think what's really important when building any of these projects is you kind of have that vision in mind and say, okay, well, this is kind of what I want to accomplish. You know, what are the kind of base foundation tools that I can start with? And then how can I add to that to get to where I want to go with my idea? Because I think a lot of the best ideas really are built on the foundation of other ideas, right? So.
for sure.
All right, so I'm actually not certain it's 8:30. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this for now. There we go, back to outside of the Spark AR. So I think hopefully what you took from that is, like I said, that there are a lot of options, but that we can actually prototype quite quickly based on what you're bringing in via 3D, via script, and just a little, you know, creativity in terms of adding colors and manipulating an object even just based on colors. So yeah, do you guys have any questions specifically about that or other things?
I always have questions, but I don't want to sort of steal the floor.
Was it Anne? Anne was.
Well, I have one, and is so you know, I noticed that, you know, like there's more people creating filters. And how do people find them? Because I know that there's been some of the filters out there that I've seen, and I've been trying to find them, but I can't because there's so many, and I feel like it feels kind of like it's saturated. So how do I find those filters, or how can I provide the filters, or how can I make it more visible for people to be able to use it?
So if you're looking specifically, like you just said, oh, I remember seeing one that had rain, you can actually now search by keyword. Yeah, so I don't know if you know that. I'm going to try, and maybe I can share my phone. Let's go into my phone. Just give me 1 second. And I'm going to try to figure out how we can
Yeah, like from Instagram, when you're like on Instagram, you can actually find it.
You can actually search, yeah, the filters, the gallery, what they call the gallery. I'm going to try and share my phone, this one, share.
I mean, the first one that I open when it goes to the filters is one of yours, the Aloha one.
It's because you follow, yeah, you follow me. So for example, that Aloha one. Here, let's look at me here, so we're not just looking at them. There we go. Okay, so there I am. You can see me.
Aloha.
And can you see me? You can see me in the Zoom thing too. I've got the camera in front of me. So you guys can see my screen, and we're gonna browse effects. So here we go. We're going through the effect gallery. Item here.
Oh.
Something with rain. Now you're gonna search, right? So it'll show you the creators, but it will also show you the effects that have rain as a keyword or rain in the title. This is a really new feature that they've just recently added. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it's really based on what you remember. So say you wanted something with a, okay, so now we're going to be searching all of the effects that have a flower, right? Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does.
Now let's say, for example, I have the Aloha one. Aloha. Now I've already saved it to my camera. But let's say I wanted to save someone's, I'll just choose this random person here, Aloha Moon. I'm going to try it. And if I like it, I'm going to save the effect to my tray. Now it's
Oh.
da-da-da.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, there we go.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's a little bit of Instagram, I guess, usability.
So
Yeah, that's cool.
the thing I wanted to do ever since I saw these first face filter effects is dress myself up like the guys from Kiss, you know, like in their makeup. I can't believe that would not be done by now. Somebody must have done it.
No, I feel like someone has. I've seen it definitely in the community.
Yeah.
You seen it for it?
You know, like you could pick your favorite Kiss member to dress yourself up as them.
Yeah, I feel like someone's done that. Like even someone in close community. Let's see. Did you search for it, Rod? Kiss. You'd think that it would be.
Kiss makeup.
Oh, there we go. Yep. Kiss
I think that is really cool that for Halloween, a lot of people didn't have like a costume and they just use a filter. Like,
totally.
This is my costume this year.
Totally. I'm going to share my screen here. They didn't need to do much. Okay, here we go. You see it, Rod?
Oh, yeah.
Where did it go? So yeah, there are a few of them.
That's so funny.
But yeah, this community has grown and grown. Like I said, the kind of default is the face filter stuff. And that's why I wanted to show something a little bit different in terms of the functionality, because we've seen a lot of that. And we really have to maybe start thinking outside the box of how we can use AR filters outside of face filter. Because there's that whole world space thing that we can build for that is really untapped right now. And there's a lot of potential. And really it's a matter of being pretty savvy with 3D assets. I'm spending a lot of my spare time learning 2 specific 3D apps or programs. So I'm Blender because it's free, and we've talked about how you have to be resourceful and nowadays keep to a budget. So that one's free, and there's a lot of resources, especially even in the community, with how Blender integrates 3D assets integrate into Spark. So that's something worth searching for in the community, but also Cinema 4D I'm learning as well. Because again, the more capacity you have to build elements for the world space, then you can do things beyond, going to Sketchfab and pulling a pillow. I can actually, if I want to recreate, say, a custom closet for my space, if I were able to configure something where I can actually build in elements of the boards and things like that, that people could configure themselves. It's a whole other way of building assets that you don't have to rely on some sort of repository. You can actually build the assets yourself. So that's what I'm focusing on right now. That's the next steps for me. And then we'll go beyond that into VR. Like VR is very much based in 3D space as well. So I think it's very useful to take advantage of this time right now to learn. For me, it's Spark AR, but also 3D too. It's going to be a big thing.
What was that?
Yeah, I think, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you to repeat the name of that second tool that you said you were learning.
Oh, Cinema 4D. Now that's a paid option. But the difference between Blender I'm finding and Cinema 4D is that Cinema 4D is just a bit more user-friendly. For me, it suits my workflow. But again, that's another thing. Everyone has to just kind of find what works for them. The benefit to Blender, like I said, is there are a lot of really great free resources, especially how it relates to bring them into Spark. Because as you can see, when we brought that pillow in, it was huge. And that was because someone else had built that asset. They hadn't optimized it for Spark AR. If you're going to be building in Blender, there are specific tutorials. We have a great fellow named Noland, and he's very active in the community. He's really, really good at optimizing 3D effects specifically from Blender to Spark. And there are a lot of people that have that knowledge. Again, you just have to kind of ask in the community a very specific question, and then usually you'll find a very specific answer too. So, yeah.
Cool. And I know that you actually also like learning how to create 3D models on VR, right? Like you just recently got the Quest like for Christmas.
Yeah.
So you're actually creating 3D models instead of VR.
Yeah.
Which is really cool too. Like, what is it like? Can you repeat? Like, can you mention again? I know that you have said it before, but the name of the software that you're using to learn how to create 3D models in virtual reality.
Right. So again, from the community, I posed the question and I said, hey, what are you guys using to build 3D assets in VR? And the number one thing that came back was Gravity Sketch. So that's an app for the Quest. If I had my choice and if it were working, I got the cord to do the beta, which is the link from the Quest to make it like a Rift. So I could access some of the other sculpting programs or the apps that are available. Medium, that's one that I really want to get my hands on, but the Quest and my setup with my link, it just isn't working. I'm still hacking at that, and hopefully I'll be able to do that. But for now, hands-free in the Quest, Gravity Sketch. And the great thing about that one, besides Tiltbrush is kind of a more painterly program or app. I keep saying program and app, but you guys know what I mean. It's more painterly. You can't manipulate your strokes, whereas in Gravity Sketch, you can lay something down, then you can go and actually manipulate the points to tweak it and refine it. I think Anne has a question. She's sitting there quietly.
Thanks for catching that. Where else have you been deploying your or seeing Spark projects been deployed other than just Instagram filters, or is it completely Instagram filters?
Well, they're Facebook and Instagram. So when you build for Spark, yeah, that's basically the only place that you're going to be able to export to. They've just launched what's called, I think it's just in this version too, 84, presentation mode. So, I mean, you won't necessarily have to rely on using the Instagram or Facebook camera. It's actually going to be something that you can use, say, at trade shows or whatever kind of event space without the necessity of having the Instagram or Facebook app running. So that's a really cool new feature that they've just released. So yeah, I'd say stay tuned to see what else they come up with. But currently, that's the only thing outside of the actual app family. I mean, it's related. It sits on the same engine, I guess. So.
And
yeah.
have you seen any success with commercializing that? Like, I know mostly it's users creating something fun, and it's one of those things that, like, if a business tries to do it, sometimes it could come off as tacky or they just don't get any traction with it. But have you seen it, someone apply it in a more commercial or marketing context and having that work?
Yeah, it's interesting too. So more for a marketing tool or an awareness tool, the target tracking element that was recently used twofold over, I'd say, January, Christmas time. So I don't know if you recall Starbucks. They had their cups that were augmented. So when you would actually use, if you were on their Instagram profile, then you could activate the app to have an experience around the cups, and they had 4 cups that they launched. So that was kind of the one thing that they did there that I thought was interesting, different use.
You could only see that if you went to their profile?
Yeah, because that's where you would access the effect. I mean, if you were to save the effect, you could always access it through your camera, but that's where you initially grab it from.
So was it like their stories had like filter and you clicked, it had like a pinned story, and in the pinned story, you could go to the top left. Okay, cool, I see, that makes sense.
But then in terms of actually, I would say augmenting space. So they did something with the Tate Museum as well as if you know Refinery 29, they created these experiences. So each room and each target would activate an experience. So more from, say, the art perspective, it was used for, I guess, an immersive art display. So outside of being commercial, it's something that can just really take what's really been traditionally two-dimensional. These are some really old paintings that they pulled from the Tate, and they gave them new life and new stories almost, because they were able to add motion and action to the what were just static two-dimensional paintings. So that's another different implementation that can, again, it can be deployed right away. It just takes a little bit of creativity, the imagination to come up with the concept, and then to animate. You can do a lot of procedural animation as well. We didn't even look at that through the patch editor, which is really, again, super easy to do. But there are all kinds of different things that we can do. You know, it's hard to kind of put it all into one effect, but there are lots and lots of resources too. If you check out YouTube and just search Spark AR, you know, it's really, again, a matter of saying, okay, this is kind of the concept I want to do. How do I go about doing it? And then you just find your path to get there. Ask a lot of questions.
And have you seen the engagement? Because I'm creeping you on Instagram now, and you've got quite an impressive following. Do you find a lot of your engagement with your followers comes from your AR filters?
Mm-hmm, definitely. Yeah, so to start off with, my audience was in the illustration space, because that's where I come from, and lettering specifically. But once I got into building the effects, there's just a virality to some of them. And because there was just a small group of us to begin with, there was a lot of traction because there are so few filters that were available. Now, obviously, once the beta opened to the public, the amount of filters that are being produced they're huge. So, you know, I think in terms of engagement, it's definitely less than what it was, which is totally fine for me, because you kind of go through phases. You know, there's a honeymoon period where I was like, wow, all these people are using my effects. And it was amazing, because what you're able to do is actually see people working with your art or what you've created, and they're engaging with it in ways that you would never even imagine, right? You get a little peek into their world, which I thought was really amazing. So many of my users are in Brazil and Russia. These are spaces that, you know, maybe you wouldn't necessarily be able to travel to, especially nowadays, but yet you get to see this little portion of their lives through the moment that they're taking with your effect. You get to see their world. And I was really fascinated with that. But in terms of how it's growing, I think it's one of those things you have to stay on top of it. And just like any other audience or anything else that you have to build content for it. So, you know, my attention has gone a bit more to the client side. So I'm not producing so much for myself, but it's still, you know, it's a different phase, and I enjoy it so much still, and there's so much to explore with it. But on you know, on the personal level, you know, I try and keep it growing and stuff, but that's definitely not my main motivation. It's more just to continue exploring the possibilities of the software and pushing the boundaries on it. So yeah, James.
I've got a stupid question. This is going to be like an old man question. Where do you actually use like face filters on Android, on Instagram anyway? Like, cause like I go to like the Instagram camera, and like there's no option on the UI I see for like adding a filter. Like, does anyone know? Does anyone know offhand like how you do it on Android for Instagram?
Hey James, I'm just going to jump in and say thank you for asking the question, because I had the same question. I couldn't figure it out.
This is so funny.
I can't figure it out.
Ask it.
So you're not seeing any filters right now for Android?
On Android, like if I go to the Instagram camera, like this is the UI I've got, right? Like I don't know how much you can see here, but like
Don't move for a sec.
I think I know what you mean. It's because you are clicking on to add a photo on the feed instead of a story. So on Instagram, if you go to the left top where it says Instagram, there's a little camera on there. That's where you have to click on to actually get the filters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can only do them on stories, not on photos. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thanks.
But you see, this was another real big challenge too when they were rolling this out, is that there was this whole element of education that we had to take, because I mean, even still today, there are a lot of people that have no clue, A, how that these effects even exist, and B, how to access them, right? So Yeah, there's a whole education element. It's starting to grow as more celebrities and more people that have visibility are using them. Definitely the audience is growing, but yeah, it's been a bit of a roadblock.
I think the problem here is people like me and Rod aren't exactly the direct target audience, right?
Well, yeah, you kind of built for the audience too, right? So
But I think it's awesome that you guys are here because there's, again, like Lianne says, right? It's growing and there's a lot of people that don't know, right? And they don't want to ask the question, but you actually took the courage to ask the question. And that's good. So now is something that people can actually see and they're like, oh, great. Now I know.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I just figured out how to use the KISS filter, and I just put my first picture on my story.
Awesome.
Yay!
How people engage and how they view the stories and things like that. It's a whole other beast, right? I see it as a marketing tool, visibility tool, just like anything else that we're putting out there, right? It's just another channel for people to tune into. So
Yeah, I think it's great for us to even connect, like especially being isolated. Like I know that there's a filter where it changes your voice and it makes your face like cute and funny, like an animal, I think it is. And then you start talking and you can be like either making a joke or complaining about something, and whatever that you're saying, it just sounds so funny. Like I'm not even listening to the person, I'm just hearing the voice. And it's funny and it's just a way to connect with people. So I think it's great. Filters are awesome.
I had another use case scenario that was interesting. Again, one of these things you just don't really plan for, but when people come back to you and say it, you're like, ah. And there is one, actually it's happened frequently, but just recently, one woman who's been at home and she's been super uncomfortable putting herself out there. But she wrote me and she said, thank you. I just want to let you know that I've been using a couple of your filters to go live on Instagram, which I never would have done. And I just want to say thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my voice. And I'm just, you're like, wow, you never think that anyone's going to use it that way. But here I'm this woman who is so shy, was apparently so shy. Felt like she had a reason to post because there was something to talk about while she was connecting. But that did it in such a way, I guess it made her feel so much less self-conscious. And that to me is like that's a really cool side effect. I don't know, to allow
empowering.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
I love it. Yes.
So, yeah, you take that and you think, okay, well, people will just use it. You serve it up to them and see how they use it, and they come back in surprising ways. But that's a really positive, good thing. So hopefully more like that. Especially like you say, as people are remote, like we have to do it's people who are not really comfortable putting their face out there, unfortunately are in these situations now where they're like, oh geez, I have to talk to my people. This filter, and we can do it with a bit of entertainment, right?
Yes, exactly. And some days I feel like, and some days I actually use one of your filter ones. With the Aloha one is one of my favorites because I add that flower, like in Dominican Republic, back home, we actually put on that flower, just like we sit on the street and we just put it on, and I'm like, oh my god, that's remind me of like the old days when I was back home. And it also like helps me when I don't feel like I want to show my bare face.
Yeah.
So it helps. Yes.
Yeah, it's true. Well, in that sense, yeah, it definitely helps. Ways that you don't. That's cool. Any other thoughts, guys? Any questions? Because I'm not just limited to Spark, but yeah, usability and stuff. I'm pretty much immersed in Instagram, the experience, the stats, all those things on the back end. And thankfully we have a direct line. And when I say we, there's a handful of us creators that, like I've been speaking in different areas in North America. And thankfully that team has been really involved. Like you think, okay, well, they're, kind of 1 degree of separation. No, this team that is building the software are creators themselves and are very much interested in making sure that this product is successful because they believe in it strongly. And you sense that when you're communicating with them. And it's so rare, I think, to be able to have that direct line to the actual team that's building the software, this kind of powerful software, that we've been able to give them feedback and they've implemented things, like that search function. I'm super proud of that because like a year ago I was pushing them. I'm saying, no one can find these effects, and they're thinking, I saw something with a blank keyword, and I thought, why don't we search through keyword? And so in suggesting that, and a couple of other people made the same suggestion, the team took that feedback. And now, you know, when it was released, I'm like, I can't believe you guys heard us, and thank you for hearing what we were suggesting and for implementing it. It takes a while. There's a lot of stuff that they have to change up, but this is the kind of community it is. And that's really rewarding too, when you actually feel like you have a voice that's heard. It means a lot, you know, from the developer's perspective. So yeah. So we taking on in time. I'm probably gonna have to get going. I'm surprised my kids haven't come running in. I have 2 dogs too, and my husband's doing a great job keeping them up there, and yeah.
You're in the zone.
Yeah, totally. Trying to troubleshoot, figure out why the thing isn't working. Thanks for your patience through that.
No, that was cool.
No, thank you for showing us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. If you have questions, Anne, too, or again, anyone who's watching this after the fact, my DMs are open. I'm active in the community. Feel free to ask questions to me directly or to anyone in that community. Like I said, it's a really great group of people who are very responsive and willing to help. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, did you mention, you probably mentioned this at the beginning and I just missed the very beginning, but where do you talk, like where is your community situated for the Spark community? Like, is that a particular forum?
It is. It's Spark AR community. It's, if you follow that link, yeah, there's an actual link. You just have to join the group. I think there are about 50,000 people right now, which is, they're not all active at once, thankfully. But that also means that because everything is archived, it's searchable. And, you know, people who have asked questions, they've been doing so for quite a long amount of time. And a lot of the information is still relevant. And like I said, it's archived so you can search. Yeah.
Hey, I just want to shine some light to our director of North America for Developer Circles, Alina Sabu. She's here, and also one of the leads for Guyana Developer Circles, Samantha. Thank you so much, guys, for being here too.
Yeah.
I love the support.
And Mark was in briefly.
Oh, he was? Oh, I missed him.
Yeah.
Which Mark?
Mark with a C, Mark?
Mark with a C.
That's the question, exactly.
No, baby Mark.
Hi, Alina.
Hi, I was tuning in very silently. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you so much for doing this. This was great. It gave everyone a taste for what Sparkial is. Thanks, Lianne.
Yeah, no problem. Nice to see you.
Guys.
I love it. Yeah, it's like a meetup that's just gone beyond borders. So.
Exactly.
So my plan is to before I leave to go back home, I'm going to try to get this video posted in the group, and I'll make a request of everybody who's here to kind of follow up with questions or comments in that thread. And then, you know, basically, if you had any resources like Lianne and Rui Jie, if you had things that you wanted to share, throw them in there so that people who weren't able to join live, who watch this thing later, then they'll be able to kind of check out those resources. Because the things that we posted in the chat in the Zoom, I don't think they're going to be included. But yeah, we'll do that. And, you know, the promise for next time is to hopefully be able to do this live in the Facebook group. The strange thing is that this worked when I tested it with Rui Jie 10 minutes before we went live. And then suddenly in this one, it didn't work. But we'll iron out those wrinkles hopefully for next time.
Yeah, we'll debug this somehow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Lianne, when you get a chance after this gets posted in the DevC group, you can add at least the 3 programs that you mentioned, Blender and the other 2. Those were remarkable recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent.
So let me just say thank you to both of you, Lianne and Rui Jie, for your time this evening. Thanks to those, and Tancred was here earlier, but he mentioned that he had to cut out to attend another meeting. So thanks to everybody who joined live, and you know, hopefully we'll make this a habit.
And thank you so much for making it so interactive. I know, and and you were asking questions and you were really out there. So it really represents what this community is to really feel comfortable to speak up and ask these questions. And also James, like I love that you ask the questions too and you make it funny too. So it's really cool. So keep it up like that. I love it because I really feel connected, and that's why we always look forward to these meetups is because every time it's like after the events I feel so energized because there's this like connection with all of you and it feels the same way even though we are online. So that was awesome. Thank you guys for that.
Yeah, it wasn't actually all that bad. It didn't feel like it was disconnected at all.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That's cool.
Now we just need to get remote pizza, right?
We'll look into that. I actually thought about it.
Oh, that would have been great.
Okay, guys. So I think maybe we'll call it here. I hope you guys have a great evening, a great month, and we'll look forward to doing this again next month.
Yes. Let's say a little bit. So for next month, we actually have a pitch presentation class with Moody Abdul. He is someone that is an expert in coaching people on how to present and how to pitch your ideas. He actually charges people money for this, and he's gonna be doing it for free for us. I am actually looking forward to that because I need help with speaking. Believe it or not, I really do need it. Like I get so anxious, and he's gonna give us some tips and teach us how to structure like a good presentation. So please come to that event as well.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Awesome.
guys. And we'll.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks. Be well.
Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.